We are horrified by what happened in the Times of Israel. I don't know whether you saw the editorial, the op-ed in the Times of Israel on the 19th of May, where they want to obliterate Palestine. We are horrified by the pogroms and everything else. And our job is to ensure that Palestine remains talked about, that we remember Palestine, we remember the Palestinians, because we know in South Africa, during our days of apartheid, what international solidarity means. International solidarity is like a breath of fresh air in the phosphorus-laden skies of Gaza.
Solidarity with the Palestinian people in their struggle for justice and dismantling of the Israeli colonial regime is the only outlet to put an end to the ongoing Nakba that started 75 years ago. South Africa people, government and institutions support for enabling the Palestinian people to achieve freedom and live in peace never stopped, and several events were organized there in order to mark the 75th anniversary of the ongoing Palestinian Nakba. To talk more about that, I have with me Mr. Yusuf Chikti from the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, Emeritus Professor in the Division of Health System and Public Health. Welcome, Mr. Yusuf, and it's nice to have you in our program. My question to you, while the Palestinians in the occupied homeland, their friends and supporters outside were marking the 75th anniversary of the Palestinian Nakba, the Israeli occupation forces were breaking into the Palestinian refugee camps, including Jenin refugee camp and Balata, killing Palestinians, the grandchildren of the people who were expelled from their homeland in 48. How this Israeli occupation conduct is interpreted and seen by you?
Yeah, for us, our struggle and our lives are indissolubly linked, are inseparable from the lives of Palestinians. I'm sitting here at the southern tip of Africa, and for us, we are connected with you. Our apartheid days started at similar times from 1948. We've been involved in a common struggle for justice, freedom, and peace. And we have been able to abolish apartheid. And our apartheid is not completely dismantled as long as there is settler colonialism and apartheid in Palestine. So it's almost like our hearts are cut in half, and one half is over there and one half is over here. And we must, through the dismantling of apartheid, we are going to do that. And there are many things, you remind us, Palestine is for us a litmus test. Palestine is an indication for your commitment to injustice globally. And it still reflects a mirror on our society of what is being still that needs to be done in the complete and total dismantling of apartheid. There's a famous saying, you're speaking from Ramallah, there's a huge statue in Ramallah, and that man on that statue said, we can never be free until Palestine is free. So our freedom is hinged, an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere, right? So we have a saying in South Africa during the time of our struggle, that an injury to one is an injury to all. And as long as that wound of Palestine is still open, that wound is still bleeding, so long we will feel that pain. And the Prophet Ayub, Job, he said, Rumi said, while Solomon got weary of his crown, while Solomon got tired of rule, Job, Ayub, never tired of his pain. So our pain is something that we will bear, but we will bear it until and unless Palestine is free.
Yes.
For us, Palestine, yeah.
Yeah, and Mr. Yusuf, we have watched how many demonstrations in South Africa were organized to mark the Palestinian Nakba, the 75th anniversary. From your own perspective, how this gives the Palestinian struggle for freedom and justice a momentum, and how this affects also the neighboring African countries in order to mobilize and let them like have such events like in South Africa in support of the Palestinians.
Yeah. So, for us, every day is a Nakba day, and every day is a struggle for return.
Yeah.
It's both a catastrophe that we mark and a determination that we get up one more time to ensure that the refugees, the land is returned, the refugees are returning, and that the displacement is stopped. So that happens every day. This whole year, we've been engaged in battles around highlighting the plight of Palestinians, not only highlighting the plight of Palestinians, but to ensure that the Palestinians get protection. We are horrified by what happened in the Times of Israel. I don't know whether you saw the editorial, the op-ed in the Times of Israel on the 19th of May, where they want to obliterate Palestine. We are horrified by the pogroms and everything else. And our job is to ensure that Palestine remains talked about, that we remember Palestine, we remember the Palestinians, because we know in South Africa, during our days of apartheid, what international solidarity means. International solidarity is like a breath of fresh air in the phosphorus-laden skies of Gaza, in the toxic atmospheres of the stun grenades that they shoot at us in all parts of the rest of Palestine. So international solidarity is very important to ensure that the Palestinians remain prisoners of hope, that they never give up hope. And what do we want to do? We know, there is something at the United Nations. We want to intensify. We leave it to the Palestinians to decide on the type and method of the struggle. But what we can do is to build an international solidarity. And our activities over the last couple of weeks, days, hours, in fact, has been directed at declaring that Israel is an apartheid state in terms of the International Convention on apartheid at the UN, and we are making sure we are applying pressure on the South African government to recognize Israel as an apartheid state so that we can impose sanctions on it like they did in South Africa. So that is our overall strategy from this part of the world.
Yes.
We also want to ensure that the Palestinian, everything that happens around us, we must ask the question, what about Palestine? So that is the overall political direction. And when you show that picture of the Dome of the Rock, that is for us. We orientate towards that. And in our daily slogans, what we say, there it is. In our daily slogans, what we say, without Al-Aqsa, there is no Jerusalem. And without Jerusalem, there is no Palestine. And without Palestine, there is no peace. And without peace, there is no freedom for us in South Africa. So our struggles are inherently, the Palestinian struggle is embedded in our daily activities. And I would like to give that message to the Palestinians who may be listening to this, that you have a solidarity is a very important armor, a bodyguard, which will protect us and which must be inclusive, and it will protect us against the assaults and the onslaughts of those who want to keep us in perpetual servitude and subjugation.
Yes, and Mr. Youssef, we have watched the speech by the Israeli occupation Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from under the tunnels under Al-Burak wall in occupied Jerusalem, and he kept reiterating that Jerusalem is the eternal capital of Israel, and the Palestinians have no right and no claim to the city of Jerusalem. And we hear the Israeli officials like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir saying that the Palestinians have three options: either they accept the occupation as it is, or they leave Palestine or we kill them. So in light of these statements and these policies and systemic behavior by the Israeli occupiers, how the solidarity movement in South Africa and around the world could help the world awaken and press Israel to stop such barbaric policies against a defenseless people, the people of Palestine.
Yeah, so these are when a power starts declining, they become desperate, and these are the desperate cries of a house of Zion falling apart. And they need to say this to give themselves a sense of belief that is going on. But you can see it everywhere. The mood is shifting in terms of acceptance of the Nakba, marked at the United Nations. That was a significant event. More and more people through social media are seeing what they do. We want Netanyahu to be underground. We want him to be further underground, and we don't want him to be underground under the Dome of the Rock. We want him to be underground to bury him elsewhere and to bury him with his ideas, right? And that moment will come. Thousands of civilizations have claimed, that theirs is an eternal kingdom, theirs is an eternal power, theirs is an eternal whatever it is. But we know these pharaohs don't last. We have justice on our side. And when I say that the Dome of the Rock is our vision, is our orientation, they can say what they want to say, but what we haven't said, what we will never say, we have never lost our faith in our name, in the name that we are Palestinians and we support Palestinians. We have never lost sight of our vision for a right to return to our land, to our liberty, for our liberty to be regained. We have never lost faith or iman that we are going to abolish the system of oppression, and that they cannot kill. They can kill journalists who bring the messages. They need to kill the journalists because the message is becoming so powerful. They can kill the leaders, but again, new leaders will arise, and the ones that arise from our loins are even better than those who went before us. So we salute. This is similar to what happened in South Africa. At the tail end of apartheid, the ruling class became more desperate, and the youth became more braver, and the youth fought against it. And every generation, has this test that is imposed on them. You can either fulfill your mission or betray it. And in this process, what we found in South Africa, that you must be single-minded in your determination for the liberation of and for the fight against injustice. So and our strategy was a very simple strategy.
Yeah.
Our strategy was very simple, and I'd like to elaborate on it when you have a chance to say something.
Yeah, and really my final question, because we are running out of time, Mr. Yusuf. I want to ask you about your personal feelings when you see the Israeli occupation forces storming Palestinian cities, towns, and refugee camps, killing young people, children, watching Palestinian parents crying over the dead bodies of their children, and all these tragic scenes that we have in the everyday life in Palestine. How do you feel when you see that? Do you remember what was happening during the apartheid in South Africa 30 years and 40 years ago?
Yeah. So, how do I feel? I need to restrain myself so that, and we have what is called a righteous wrath, a righteous anger. We are angry, but for the right reasons that we are angry. It's a biblical term to be angry, to be righteous wrath, to have that righteous wrath when you see this injustice. And what do we do? When Imam Abdullah Harun was killed in prison, I was about 10 years old when that happened, and my father came back from the funeral, and one of the people said at the funeral, they can bury Imam Harun now. they can bury the ones that they can kill. And they can close the books on them. But we will keep those books open and teach our children about what we stand for. So whenever somebody died in South Africa or is dying in Palestine, and we bury them with our hearts rent apart, with tears in our eyes and moistness in our eyes and dryness in our throat, what we say is we're not burying a martyr or an individual, we are planting a seed that will inspire future generations in terms of, for our future generations to taste the fruits of the liberty that they fought for so hard. So we are clearly not intimidated, not coward in terms of the brutality, and we go from beyond a righteous wrath, from beyond a lament, from beyond crying. We want to understand how better we must conduct the struggle, because there is no time to look across our shoulders and to say, how are we going to forward, how are we drawing the lessons in order to learn once again. So the lessons from South Africa is unity, number one. We must have the basis of a principled unity amongst ourselves. Don't allow ourselves to be divided or to be subdued into submission by this. That's number one. The second point that we learn is never to collaborate with the enemy. Never. The road to freedom in South Africa and what is currently happening in Palestine, Camp David, the Oslo Accord, is riddled with compromises. We must have a clear vision. We won't compromise 1 inch of Palestinian land. One droplet of our blood of Palestinians and those who fight at the forefront. We will tell that to our youth, and we are inspired by our youth. A new generation is emerging, and we must support them, and we must understand them, and we will stand. They stand on our shoulders. On our shoulders they stand, and their vision is even far better than what we've had. So if we can lose everything, as long as we don't lose hope, as long as we don't lose our name, who we are, our memories, and as long as we transmit that, we will defeat this enemy. And you know, in the 1970s, when you speak about 50 years ago, in the 1970s, when we struggled, we had a saying, and I don't know whether my Arabic is correct, Yal Nasser, Yal Nasser, Yal Nasser. That is the determination that we still have today. You can translate what Yal Nasser is for me.
Yeah, Yusuf Trikiti from Palestine Solidarity Campaign. It has been a great pleasure having you on our program. Thank you very much.
The pleasure is mine, and strength to you, and all the best. And may we live long enough for me to visit Al-Aqsa, to visit Jerusalem, and to come and visit Palestine, where Palestinians are free, living in equality, and living in peace.
We hope so. Thank you very much. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching, and from you, Osama Nazal. Have a nice time.